Picture this. A decorated military commander stands at the edge of a muddy river, his face twisted with rage and humiliation. His servants plead with him to reconsider. Everything he's hoped for, everything he's traveled so far to receive, waits for him in those murky waters. But his pride tells him to walk away. This is the story of Naaman, a tale that transcends time and culture to teach us about the transformative power of humility. It's a story found in 2 Kings chapter 5, and it reveals how God often works in ways that challenge our expectations and humble our hearts. Let's travel back to ancient Syria, around 850 BC. The region is marked by constant warfare between the kingdom of Aram, also known as Syria, and the northern kingdom of Israel. In this volatile landscape, one man stands out among all others. Naaman is the commander of the Syrian army, a man of immense power and influence. 2 Kings chapter verse 1 describes him this way. Naaman was commander of the army of the king of Aram. He was a great man in the sight of his master and highly regarded, because through him the Lord had given victory to Aram. He was a valiant soldier, but he had leprosy. That final phrase changes everything. Despite all his military achievements, despite his wealth and status, Naaman suffers from leprosy. In the ancient world, leprosy isn't just a medical condition, it's a social death sentence. The disease progressively destroys the skin and nerves, causing disfigurement and disability. For a proud warrior like Naaman, this diagnosis is devastating. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. During one of Syria's raids in Israel, Naaman's forces capture a young Israelite girl. She becomes a servant to Naaman's wife. This unnamed girl, torn from her home and family, enslaved in a foreign land, could have been bitter. She could have rejoiced in her captor's suffering. Instead, she shows remarkable compassion. 2 Kings 5 verse 3 records her words. If only my master would see the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy. Think about the faith this young girl demonstrates. She's a captive, yet she cares enough about her master's suffering to suggest a solution. She believes in the power of God's prophet, even in her desperate circumstances. Her simple statement sets in motion a chain of events that will change Naaman's life forever. Naaman takes the girl's words seriously. He approaches his king, who immediately writes a letter to the king of Israel. The Syrian king sends Naaman with an impressive entourage, carrying 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 sets of clothing. To put this in perspective, this is an enormous fortune, worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in today's currency. When Naaman arrives in Israel, he presents the letter to the king. But there's a problem. The letter essentially demands that the king of Israel cure Naaman of his leprosy. 2 Kings 5 verse 7 captures the king's panicked response. Am I God? Can I kill and bring back to life? Why does this man send someone to me to be cured of his leprosy? See how he is trying to pick a quarrel with me. The king of Israel tears his robes in distress. He interprets this as a political trap, a pretext for war. He has no power to heal leprosy, and he fears the consequences of failure. But news of this crisis reaches Elisha, the prophet of God. Elisha sends a message to the king. Why have you torn your robes? Have the man come to me, and he will know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman, with his horses and chariots and impressive military escort, arrives at Elisha's house. Here stands the mighty commander of Syria's army at the humble dwelling of God's prophet. Naaman expects a grand reception befitting his status. He expects ceremony, ritual, perhaps some dramatic display of spiritual power. But Elisha doesn't even come out to greet him. Instead, he sends a messenger with simple instructions found in 2 Kings 5. Go wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan, and your flesh will be restored and you will be cleansed. Naaman is furious. His pride is wounded. He expected the prophet to personally attend to him, to call on the name of the Lord his God, to wave his hand over the spot and cure him. Instead, he receives what he perceives as a dismissive command delivered by a servant. 2 Kings 5 verses 11 and 12 record his angry response. But Naaman went away angry and said, I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God, wave his hand over the spot and cure me of my leprosy. Are not Abana and Pharpar, The rivers of Damascus better than all the waters of Israel? Couldn't I wash in them and be cleansed? Naaman's pride blinds him to the opportunity before him. He's offended that the prophet didn't show him proper respect. He's insulted by the simplicity of the instruction. The Jordan River is muddy and unimpressive compared to the clear, beautiful rivers of Damascus. Why should he humble himself in such ordinary waters? This is the crisis point of the story. Naaman turns to leave, his healing within reach, but his pride preventing him from grasping it. How often do we do the same thing? How often does God offer us blessing through simple obedience, but we reject it because it doesn't match our expectations? Fortunately, Naaman has wise servants who dare to speak truth to their powerful master. 2 Kings 5 verse 13 records their gentle reasoning. My father, if the prophet had told you to do some great thing, would you not have done it? How much more then, when he tells you, wash and be cleansed? Their logic is irrefutable. If Elisha had demanded some heroic feat, some difficult task worthy of a great warrior, Naaman would have eagerly complied. So why refuse when the requirement is so simple? Their words penetrate his pride and touch his reason. Naaman reconsiders. He makes the choice that will change everything. He goes down to the Jordan River and dips himself 7 times, exactly as the man of God instructed. Can you imagine the internal battle he fights with each immersion? His pride resisting, his desperation hoping, his faith growing. 2 Kings 5 verse 14 describes the miraculous result. So he went down and dipped himself in the Jordan 7 times, as the man of God had told him, and his flesh was restored and became clean like that of a young boy. The healing is complete and instantaneous. His diseased skin becomes like that of a young child, fresh and healthy. But something even more profound happens. Naaman's heart is transformed, along with his body. He returns to Elisha, and this time his approach is completely different. 2 Kings 5 verse 15 shows his changed attitude. Then Naaman and all his attendants went back to the man of God. He stood before him and said, Now I know that there is no God in all the world except in Israel. The proud commander who was offended when Elisha didn't come out to greet him now stands humbly before the prophet. The man who boasted about Syria's superior rivers now confesses faith in Israel's God. Naaman has experienced not just physical healing, but spiritual transformation. He offers Elisha gifts, trying to repay him for the miracle. But Elisha refuses, demonstrating that God's grace cannot be purchased. The healing wasn't earned by Naaman's wealth or status. It came through humble obedience to God's word. Naaman makes a remarkable request. He asks for 2 mule loads of earth to take back to Syria. In the ancient world, people often believed that gods were tied to specific territories. Naaman wants to take Israelite soil so he can worship Israel's God on Israelite ground, even in Syria. Though his theology isn't perfect, his heart is genuinely transformed. He also asks for forgiveness in advance for a situation he'll face back home. As the king's right-hand man, he'll need to accompany his master into the temple of Rimmon, the Syrian god. Naaman wants to make clear that bowing in that temple will be a matter of duty, not worship. His loyalty now belongs to the one true God. Elisha responds with grace, Go in peace. This story reveals powerful truths that resonate across the centuries. First, God's grace extends beyond national and ethnic boundaries. Naaman is a Syrian, an enemy of Israel, yet God heals him. The gospel message has always been for all people, not just one chosen nation. Second, God often works through humble means. The muddy Jordan River, a simple instruction, 7 dips in the water. God doesn't need impressive ceremonies or complicated rituals. He asks for simple obedience and faith. Third, pride is the great barrier to receiving God's blessing. Naaman almost missed his healing because the method offended his dignity. How many blessings do we forfeit because we think we know better than God? How often does our pride prevent us from following simple instructions? Fourth, true transformation involves both body and spirit. Naaman's skin was healed, but more importantly, his heart was changed. He went from arrogant commander to humble worshiper of the true God. Jesus himself references this story in Luke chapter 4, verse 27, reminding his listeners that many lepers lived in Israel during Elisha's time, yet none were cleansed except Naaman the Syrian. Jesus uses this example to show that God's grace often goes to unexpected people, in unexpected ways. Naaman's story challenges us today. What pride do we need to surrender? What simple obedience is God calling us to that we're resisting because it seems beneath us? Where are we demanding that God work according to our expectations rather than His wisdom? The mighty warrior learned that true strength isn't found in military power or social status. True strength is found in humble submission to God's will. The path from pride to humility led through the muddy waters of the Jordan River, and on the other side waited not just physical healing, but eternal transformation.